Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. It was wonderful having been with you on Keep Hope Alive as we talked about what we're going to talk about now. I don't think we can overemphasize the vote, the vote. Many of us are being purged. Many of us don't know that we are even close to being purged. I'm getting more and more messages from all of you about some of you having been purged because you've heard us call out vote.org. Just go there. Check. It doesn't even take a couple of minutes to find out if you are still registered, if you're still on the rolls. Got to make sure that you haven't been removed from the rolls. So let's talk about this, everybody. Let's talk about this and talk about how you can stay on vote.org if you've been removed from the rolls and you can go on and get re-registered. But you might need to do that. I'm here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Everybody thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Hey, Ashley King down there in Memphis, and hey, Robert, how you doing? And please go to the Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. Like and subscribe there. But everybody, thumbs up, thumbs up. I thank you for rolling with me as we're really posting these shows at different times. My schedule's kind of been a little crazy lately, so I've had to do what I've had to do. But thank you so much for sticking with me, my beautiful Santita Jackson radio show family. Sending you so much love. And please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. That's the only place where I can accept friends, not at Santita Jackson. Please go to Santita Jackson and Friends. That is the active page. Please go there and become my friend and like and share the show. I'm on Twitter, X, at Santita J. That's Santita J. So please get on over there and let's talk about this election. Many of us do not know that we can be purged, that we have been purged from the voter rolls. I was watching Washington Journal on C-SPAN. Everybody knows Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. You know I love that show. And I love the show because I think that the anchors really make an effort to be neutral. And which is fine because it lets me decide. And they open the lines after Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and they let people talk. Now, sometimes when people don't have their facts straight, they will correct them. Maybe they're on the air, or certainly they will follow up very quickly with a rebuttal. But in this instance, they did not. A woman called in, and she sounded to be an elderly white woman, and I have no reason to impugn her integrity. She was so sincere when she said that she did not believe these stories about voter purges. She said, because look, let me tell you how you get your name removed from the rolls. You have to prove that you've died. Someone has to prove that you died, and she went through this whole list of steps that one has to take to be removed from the voter rolls. I said, but she doesn't know that this is happening. 1 million plus people have been kicked off the voter rolls in Texas already. We were talking with Robert, one of our morning stars. He said, I've been hearing you talk about vote.org. And so I just decided to give them a shout out. It turns out he had been purged from the voter rolls. Why? Because he did not put drive on his address. He put street. You can use avenue, street, place. Think about that. This is happening all over the place. And it's happening by the millions, and Black, brown, and Asian people are being targeted. We have names that are ethnic, whatever that means. We don't sound like WASPs. We don't sound like we're European. So there you have it. And so I want to know if you are, let's talk. I want to know, number one, if you're still registered to vote. The reason we're pushing it this week is because you have up until October 7th. You have to go to vote.org and see which state will allow you to re-register. I think South Carolina, the cutoff date is October 4th. Other states are going up to as late as October 7th, but that's it. If you do not meet that deadline in your state, you will be able to vote, but you won't be able to vote in this election. And I know you want to vote in this election. There's a lot to vote about, not just the presidency, but, and not just the U.S. House of Representatives, or the U.S. Senate. I mean, the governors. I mean, these are the people who really control how you live. Even the presidency itself is controlled from the state level. The state legislatures are on the line. Your county officials are on the line. Your local officials are on the line. So I need you to go to vote.org and find out. And we're going to be talking uh, with Greg Palast in the next hour. Many of you have heeded the call to go to Vigilantes, to go see his movie Vigilantes Inc. And the great thing, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, is you don't have to leave home. You can just go to Save Your Vote, saveyourvote.org, and look at it for free. Leonardo DiCaprio has made that happen. Saveyourvote.org. Saveyourvote.org. Or go to gregpalast.com and you can see it for free. It costs them a couple of million at least for the research, excuse me, shooting and all of that. They put a lot of money into this, but this is Greg Palast's passion. In fact, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds will be on in the next hour to talk about that because he's done the research. And he has been sounding the alarm about voter purges for more than a decade. Indeed, he is the reporter who uncovered the theft of the election in 2000. But guess what? Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, no major American network would touch his work, even though he was impeccably researched. Right? No. So please go to vote.org and tell all of your friends, vote.org. Because you have up until, depending upon where you live, it might be October 4th, it might be the 5th, it might be the 6th. The last day will be the 7th for you to get re-registered to vote. So let's start with you, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, my dear brother beloved. I need to find out from you, is purging a real thing? And what's happening in Texas? Texas is interesting because it's a rainbow state, right?
That's right.
The highest number of Black Americans in all of the Union live in Texas. That's where we are. But we're also in Mississippi, we're in Georgia, we're in Alabama. Black people are in the South, and we're moving back to the South, but really, really in Texas. But also, you have a huge Latino population, huge. And you have a growing African population, you have a growing Asian population. There's just so much. I mean, there are a lot of resources in Texas, and people are going down there to go to work. What's going on in Texas? First of all, is voter purging a real thing? I know this lady meant well, but I said she's treating this as not as an urban myth. She's saying that, well, as an urban myth, because we are spreading untruths. I said, no, that's not true. People are being kicked off because they're being someone who they do not know, who does not know them, is challenging where they live, their citizenship. If you get so much as a challenge, you get kicked off the rolls. What's going on? What is this a real thing?
Well, Santita, first of all, it is really real. It is as real as you and I are talking right now. This is a reality that over 1 million Texans have been removed from the voter rolls. They've been purged, effectively removed. And many of those people were not dead and had not moved to another state. Many of those people were active voters that were purged, that unless they go to vote.org, they will be disenfranchised when they appear to go vote in this general election. So this is a real issue. There is no same day registration in Texas. So they would need to get re-registered by October the 7th. And if they don't, they, like you said, factually, they can register, but they won't be able to vote for this general election. So yes, it is so real. It is so important. And one of the most prominent men, who is Bishop T.D. Jakes, was in fact purged this year recently from the voter rolls. And he too had to re-register. Yeah, we can complain about it. We can get upset about it. We can question it. But the bottom line is, if we don't know our status, our voter status, and if we don't make sure that we're registered, we will not be able to vote. So this is an important conversation, and it is real. It is not a myth. This is not a scare tactic. We are not trying with hyperbole. These are facts. Santita, I had a constituent who is a precinct chair. That means that she is very engaged. She's college educated. Not that that should matter. She's African American. She has an ethnic name. She was purged from the voter rolls, and she was very upset when she called me. But she did re-register. But she just said, if that happened to me, I wouldn't have known unless I was a precinct chair. She's a voter registrar herself, Santita, and she was purged. So she was very, very disturbed. But it allowed us to sound the alarm bell for people to check their status and say, yes, this is real. This is happening, not just to people on TV or TD Jakes, but people in my community that live in my area. They too were purged. And so, yes, this is as real as it gets. But this is a part of the playbook that many in the far right have implemented to try to win by subtraction. That means they're reducing, shrinking the voting population. Those who tend to vote one way, it disproportionately impacts Black, Brown, and Asian communities. So
Democrat.
yes, Democrats. Yeah, it is sad. It is sad, but it is
Because
happening right now.
because we keep winning the popular vote.
That's
Right?
correct. That's
I
correct.
mean, the Republicans win, they're minoritarians, if you will. They win by minorities. They win. I mean, whatever you say about Trump, he campaigned very, very smartly in 2016. He campaigned in the flyover states. He was picking up votes and voters and electoral votes everywhere. He didn't leave any stone unturned. And I saw yesterday, because now this week we have to talk about the electoral college because that's becoming a real thing. More and more people are talking about, wait a minute, most Americans now want to get rid of it.
I'm one of them.
Me too, right here. Yeah. Okay. That's when you see we don't have a democracy.
That's right.
That's a Republican construct.
That's correct.
So when people say that, no, we're a democracy, no, we're a constitutional republic that has democratic elements, the founding fathers did not trust us enough. Hey, sweetie. Hey, Laura. Hey, Jewel. They did not trust us enough to be fully democratic because they said democracy leads to mob rule. So we need to put some checks in place. All you have to do is read the history because they used mob rule, not me. And so we need to be real clear that that's another conversation. But to show you how important it is, at least 6 million of Donald Trump's voters were disenfranchised because of the Electoral College. You don't have to like him. It's about the process, everybody.
That's right.
Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. And it's like free speech. I have to fight for the person whose speech I abhor because I need you to be free. See, if you're not free, I'm not going to be free either. So think about that, everybody. But what I want to know from you is, how does a TD Jakes get purged from the rolls? Now, I don't know his voting history, but you got to help me with that one. Because this was caught on camera. I mean, you went, because he looked and he said, what? How does that happen? I mean, I'm not saying that it should happen to anyone, but everyone knows, even his given name. Everyone knows Bishop T.D. Jakes. Everybody knows that.
Well, Santita, it is like this. We have, so those, I don't know how it works in other states, but in Texas, the governor appoints the Secretary of State. It's not an elected position in Texas. It's an appointed position.
Okay.
The governor appoints the Secretary of State, who basically does the governor's will, or else the Secretary of State will be removed from that same governor, right? You serve at the pleasure of the appointment who appointed you, which is the governor. You have to be confirmed by the Senate if the Senate is in session. So if the Senate is in session, they just have to confirm. If the Senate is not in session, then it's automatic. So the governor basically has carte blanche to put whoever he wants to as the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is in charge of the voter rolls, right? And they can decide the people by a prescription who is purged. And earlier today, a brilliant attorney, Barbara Arwine with Transformative Justice Coalition, she described what these Secretary of States are doing when they're sending out this postcard to people that looks like junk mail, solicitations, whatever. And if a person is not diligent and sends back that postcard saying, yes, I confirm this is my current address, then that person is subject to being purged, right? And so, what I have found and what I have seen, and we've seen the Texas NACP, we've seen many of these people that are being purged are Black people, brown, Hispanic people in poor areas. Those are the areas and zip codes that have been disproportionately impacted by these voter purges. And we think that is no accident, right? We think this is a target. And we know that this, unless these people are re registered, this is going to drive down the Democratic vote. So, therefore, you don't win by addition, you win by subtraction, meaning that you win by a smaller voting population. And we've seen a record number of younger people voting, African Americans voting, Black women lead in demographics, but they're doing everything they can to suppress those voters. They're targeting college students that are transient. In Texas, because of the strict voter ID law, these students can't vote with a voter with their college ID. If they Here's another thing, Santita, if the address on your ID doesn't match the address that they have listed for your voter registration, then you can't vote either. Even if you can prove, no, this is me. No, listen, look at it. Sorry, sir, you can't vote. You will be able to vote provisional, but provisional votes, they don't really count. So in essence, you're being disenfranchised. So this is very, very unfortunate. They're making it very difficult to vote. They're doing everything they can so that people, they're reducing voting hours. They're reducing voting locations. They taken away mobile voting. They've taken away drive-through voting. These are just some of the things that they've done in Texas. Florida has done many of the same things. So that's why it's a renewed call for Congress to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act, because those two pieces of federal legislation will reauthorize key sections of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that were stripped from the U.S. Supreme Court in the Shelby case. That is what set us back. When the Supreme Court gutted that and the Congress hasn't been able to reauthorize it, it's really hurt many of those southern states that have a high number of African Americans in it. So that's where we're at. That's where we are. We can be mad about it. We can kick and scream about it. But if we don't act, and in the words of Michelle Obama, do something by going to vote.org, registering to vote, making sure you check your status. If you're not registered, then there's an October 4th deadline, October 5th, 6th, but 7th is the last day in most of these states. Then you can complain about it, but you won't be able to vote. So this is why it's so important, not only for yourself, but share it with your friends. Like you said, look at what happened with Robert. Share it with your coworkers. Share it with your neighbors. Share it on your social media. This is something that should be a part of our daily conversation until the cutoff.
And we go to vote.org to find out what the cutoff date in your state is. So not only can you go to vote, not only do you go to vote.org to find out if you are still registered, you can re-register there. And then you can also find out what the cutoff date for re-registration is in your state. And Barbara Arnwine, attorney Barbara Arnwine, the founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition, she clarified this morning that if you re-register, that's not going to get you into trouble. It's when you register in two different places in two different states that becomes the problem, right?
That's correct. That is absolutely correct.
But Representative Reynolds, help me with this. How does now? I know you all do everything bigger in Texas. I get it. I get it. But I want to know, how is it that 1 million people are purged from the voter rolls in Texas? That sounds that it's astonishing. I mean, not to mention the fact that when I look at what your governor has been doing in terms of the crisis at the border, and I look at his connections, his political connections and affiliations. I mean, if you have a problem with the folks at the border, you could send them back. No, no, you're busing them to places all around the country where they can go to work. While we have a tent program, I keep talking about it, y'all, the tent program for refugees, it's more than 400 companies that have come together to hire migrants wherever they are, because migrants in any country are a little desperate, and you can pay them far less than you would pay the union worker
That's right.
or the citizen worker. That's what's happening here, everybody. That's Be real clear. That's what's happening. So, and and I mean, your governor has a lot of global connections, a
That's
lot of
right.
global. And so I'm like, he's not just the governor of Texas, although that is extremely important. He's also someone who is of tremendous import internationally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to find out, though, since your Secretary of State is an appointed position, I can't help but at least ask the question if he might be trying to, oh, how should we put it? Sway everything toward the Republicans.
Oh, absolutely. I
Okay.
mean, let's just keep it real. As the young folks, let's say, let's keep it 100.
They say keep it a buck.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, there's no question about it. That is what Governor Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton are attempting to do. The Attorney General, who has went so far as to target LULAC in Texas, he's raided their homes. It's made national news. This isn't me making it up. This is factual. He raided their homes, right? He took their cell phones. He's tried to do everything by intimidation because they had the audacity to what? Endorse Kamala Harris for president. That sent him in a rage. He's auditioning for former President Trump's attorney general if he's elected, and he's doing everything he can to please the MAGA extremists. But he's doing that to disenfranchise Texans. And so we have not just the governor, but the lieutenant governor and the attorney general. So we are in trouble. That's why we need federal oversight, the U.S. Department of Justice to intervene and investigate. We need attorney monitors, and we have monitors from the NAACP, people like C.K. Hoffler, who are election protection lawyers, and Barbara Arwine and Daryl Jones, that are going to have to be on guard, because these are the people because now with these laws, we have authorized partisan poll watchers to disenfranchise people. Not long ago, we had the Proud Boys at polling locations in Black and brown neighborhoods, intimidating them, right?
What
And
were they
so
doing? Like what?
they were there. Texas is a open carry state, right? So they were there with open carry, right, with guns. They were there, and some of them had on. They were very, what I would say, intimidating looking. Some big guys with some beards. You see a long gun. I mean, that can be intimidating for some people, right? A white guy in a Black neighborhood
Oh
that
yeah.
they don't live there, and they're there as poll watchers. What are they watching, right?
Well,
That's a
we know
form
our
of
history,
intimidation.
right?
That's a form of intimidation, Santita.
Yeah.
That is what they're doing, and we have seen it happen frequently. when they're trying to suppress votes, they're not over in the white neighborhoods. We checked so we could be on record to build a case. They're there in the black and brown communities. And
You
so,
know,
yes, we have to be on guard. We have to be able to speak truth to power. And in the words of John Lewis, it's time to make some good trouble. We can't let them just get away with this stuff, even though they have loopholes and they have ways to do it. We can't let them do it easily. We have to make some noise. And so the first thing is to do is to get registered. And then the second thing to do is be determined, make a plan to vote. Vote early. Don't wait till election day. Election day is November 5th, but early voting in Texas starts October 21st. In many other states, it starts sometime in October. So yes, make a plan and vote early. That way you get out the way. If there's any problem, you have a chance to rectify it. Because the last thing that anyone wants to do is to take a provisional ballot that goes in that file that it might as well be thrown in a dumpster because they don't vote, they don't count those votes. No matter what you may think, then you're just trust me and trust Santita. You have experts that come on the show. They have all said you do not want a provisional ballot. That is like yes, just get out of here. Here's a vote you can take that I'm going to store in this file cabinet that no one's ever going to look at. That's what happens to your provisional ballot.
well, what about Gerald Griggs, the president of the NAACP
Yes,
Georgia?
my frat brother.
Oh, we love Gerald.
Yes,
We love Attorney Gerald Griggs, President Griggs.
yes.
Since President Biden went into office, he said what we need is an executive order on voting rights. And all kinds of executive orders have been written during this administration's tenure. Would that have helped? I mean, would we have had 1 million people purged from the voter rolls?
Santita, I do believe that would have helped. Just like his executive order on guns helped, he couldn't get federal voting rights gun reform legislation passed. He did everything through executive order that he could. Well, he didn't go. He didn't do that for voting, and that's unfortunate. So yes, I believe that Attorney President Jill is correct. The state NAACP president in Georgia is right. President Biden should have done that. He should have leaned in more. I'm not sure why he didn't. That's for President Biden to answer, but it is a disappointment that through executive order, he had 4 years to do this when he saw the onslaught of voter suppression bills being passed in these MAGA-controlled legislatures. President Biden talked about things. He, in fact, punted to Vice President Kamala Harris, and nothing ever happened. And so it's disappointing, and it could have helped reduce the number of people being purged and the number of voter suppression across the country. Now, it probably wouldn't have eliminated it, but it could have helped. Something's better than nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he couldn't get it passed because of the filibuster in the first 2 years, and then the second 2 years, the Republicans took over. So he should have acted through executive order. I don't know why he didn't, but I'm disappointed that he didn't.
I'm disappointed, but people are also disenfranchised.
That's right. Yeah.
And Democrats from Kamala Harris all the way down ballot are at risk.
That's right.
We can't afford to lose 1 million voters.
No.
And you know what I'm saying? Really, I'm a Democrat, but this is not a partisan issue for me. I'm an independent Democrat, by the way. That's not my issue. My issue, because I feel this way, because I think every Republican, every person in the Green Party, every independent, every person who might be voting for the first time, the only time, I want you to be protected, because that is how America will work.
That's right.
So I'm fighting for everybody, because I'm very clear that if I get jammed today, you can get jammed later on today. It won't even wait till sundown. This is just, I don't agree with what we're doing here. And I'm clear, Representative Reynolds from the great state of Texas, that the original idea, and see, we have to fight against all of the founding ideas of our government. America's business is business. This was established as a business project. That's what colonialism is. Queen Isabella sent Columbus over here, although he never got here. He's an explorer who got lost. Genius. Looking for other people's resources. And then the British came looking for other people's resources. So it's always been a business project. But also, the original idea was to get the great unwashed in Europe. Because remember, these are people who are products of monarchies. So everybody really was not equal. Everybody was not endowed by God to rule, right? Vote. No, no, no. That's in the thinking of the founders of the country. That's why these were men of the Enlightenment. Men, by the way, mind you, men of the Enlightenment who dared to think of a world in which at least every moneyed man would be a king. That was a big step for in a day where you literally bowed to someone and you thought that they were endowed by God to rule over you. Think about that. So, but the original idea was not for us to vote. If that's been a fight. Poor white men couldn't vote initially. And we're kind of moving back in that direction if you're not careful, everybody. We keep looking at black folks. No, we're the canaries in the mine. We're letting you know something is rotten in Denmark. So help me, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, because I'm thinking of people who go to the polls and who are given bad information also, or who might even go to the Board of Elections and get bad information, like Crystal Mason. Let's go over her story, because she didn't go to jail for a violent crime. Not that that should matter, because I think that once you've paid your debt to society and if you're genuinely sorry, you need to be able to go on. Moses was a murderer, and God used him. So that's not what I'm saying. Okay. I'm simply saying that she got bad information.
That's right.
Kind of half-baked information. Her mother said, "Okay, you're out of prison now.
That's right.
You need to go vote." She said, "Are you sure?" And your mama says, "Go vote."
Yeah.
Her mother was not going to tolerate her sitting in the house on election day. She said, "No, you're going to get out here. You're going to vote, Crystal."
That's right.
So she went there, and what happened?
Tell
us.
This case really, it really
resonates
just
with me.
It totally, yeah. And by the way, Santita, I've talked to Crystal Mason, and I filed legislation to help her. So Crystal Mason paid her debt to society. This was in 2016. She went to vote. Her mother said, "Hey, you're free. Go vote." She was on federal supervised release. She had did all her time. She was kind of in the in between period where she had been released. And she went to go vote. Her name was not on the voter roll. So they gave her a provisional ballot, which she cast a provisional ballot. Her vote was never counted, right? Subsequently, the Attorney General and law enforcement went after her. They convicted her of voter fraud, sentenced her to 5 years. Okay, 5 years.
But wait. Let's back up. Hold on. Wait. Because you've talked to her.
Okay.
Let's go through what happened to her at the polls.
Yes.
But she still had questions.
She had questions.
What happened to her when she got there? Didn't she ask them?
She
explained.
Okay.
What happened?
Yeah. So let me backtrack. You gave this. You were right. Her mother said, "Girl, you better go vote. Your vote counts. You're
like your mama
woman.
would do.
Like your mama would do. My mama would have did the same to your mom. All good moms would do that, right? Well, she went down to the poll in person, and she talked to the people at the polling place. I imagine it was the election judge or the election clerk. and she did explain her situation. And there was uncertainty. There was no one said, "Oh no, you can't vote." And so it's my understanding that you know she they just said, "Well, you can vote this way until we so we can verify your vote, right?" And I don't know, I can't remember all the nuances, but she did talk to someone, so it wasn't like she was trying to do some kind of illegal vote. She didn't have malice. There was no intent.
She talked
Or
to a judge, a
election judge, right,
election
at the
judge.
polling location, correct.
Okay.
She talked to them and she explained to them what she, because she was unsure, and so she was trying to make sure that she was doing things the right way. And that way, and like any person would, she went to ask for assistance, and she ended up talking to the election judge. If she had the intent to do something deceptive, she never would have asked the election judge for any clarification. She would have just went and said, "Hey, I'm voting, and left and go home." But no, that's not what she did. She tried to do things the right way, Santita, and that's what makes this so egregious. This woman who was simply trying to vote, simply trying to exercise her franchise, who had paid her debt to society, had no intent to commit voter fraud, no intent to circumvent the system. She was doing what she thought was legal and what she thought was just, and she actually talked to people who worked at the polls, the election judge. So, long story short, she cast her provisional ballot. It was never counted, meaning that it didn't count towards the election. Again, the provisional ballot, proverbial provisional ballot that goes in the basket to nowhere. But then, shortly thereafter, law enforcement came knocking at her door, and then she was met with a grand jury subpoena. She was indicted, and then she was subsequently convicted. All while they knew that this was a mistake,
Of
that this
voter
was an
fraud.
honest mistake. What's
What
that?
was she convicted of? Voter fraud?
Voter fraud. Yes, she was convicted of voter fraud. They tried to use her. Now here's the thing, Santita. They knew that this was an honest mistake. They knew everything was earnest, but they wanted to use her black face to
Absolutely.
perpetuate voter fraud, and they wanted to use her as an example for why we needed to get tougher on voter fraud, because you had the Crystal Masons in there trying to vote illegally, and they wanted to crack down on this. They knew this was nonsense, but they used this woman as the poster child in Texas for voter fraud, and they threw the book at her, Santita. 5 years.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's what happened to Crystal Mason. I mean, it was terrible. All and the add insult to injury, her vote never even counted.
Well, why
And this
didn't her? Okay, but let me ask you, why didn't her provisional vote count? How does that happen?
because Santita, like I don't want to be like callous about it, but provisional votes probably 90% of the time, or even higher, probably don't get counted. That means that unless you come back and you cure really quickly a provisional ballot, they don't get counted. Like, for
But
example, let's say someone,
what's the curing? What help me? I don't understand that.
I'm gonna give you an example of where it would. Let's say you voted early, right? And you cast a provisional ballot, and the provisional ballot was because you you had a driver's license that didn't match your voter registration, right? And you came back and you had the wrong one. You brought the wrong driver's license with you, right? But you had a new one at home, and you could prove it. Well, you should you just didn't want to come back. You wanted to vote today, so you voted provisionally. You can cure that provisional ballot. That's one example. You could cure it because you had a valid driver's license that showed the matching address to the one on the voter roll. That's where I'm talking about. That's one of those situations where you cured it, where you show that this is in fact my address that matches my voter registration, and then they'll let that provisional vote count. but that's one of the few instances where a provisional ballot is cured. That means that it is whatever deficiency was able to be, you know, rectified in due time. But that's very rare. So the point I'm making is Crystal Mason, that wasn't cured. Her vote never counted. But they wanted to make an example out of her. They wanted to use her as the poster child. That is a form of voter suppression where they say, look, you don't want to be a Crystal Mason. If you make a mistake, I don't care how honest it is, we will prosecute you. You will go to prison. And if you're sitting at home, you're thinking, wait a minute, I could make a mistake too. I don't want to be like Crystal Mason. I don't want to go to prison for 5 years. What if I make a mistake? Okay, I just won't vote. Forget it. It ain't worth it for me. That then they win. Santita, that is another form of voter suppression. That is what they're doing. It's not just voter purges, but it's using people like Crystal Mason as examples where you're weaponizing someone who made a simple mistake and you're saying you're going to throw the book at them. I know that many people who may look at that situation and say, that could have been me. I ain't gonna vote. I ain't gonna get caught up in that. I'm gonna stay my butt at home. Then they win. So that is what they did to Crystal Mason. They didn't care that it was an honest mistake. They wanted to use her as an example, as a tool. She was expendable to them because she represented a demographic that they wanted to stay home.
It's just unbelievable to me that the election judge wasn't indicted.
Correct.
I mean, there were so many places along the way because she kept asking.
That's right.
And to me, this ties into this how, because these are when we hear about Crystal Mason's story, with so many of us having been in the prison system, in the jail system. You've been incarcerated, or someone you love has been incarcerated. You're a naturalized citizen, or you're a citizen, but your relatives are not, and they live with you. I'm thinking of various scenarios in which everybody's living on the edge, right? I'm just thinking of various scenarios. Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, head of the Black Legislative Caucus. I'm thinking of ways that we can get pushed out by intimidation, because voter intimidation is part of purging, right?
It is.
So what do we do? Because if TD Jakes, I'm sorry, seeing the expression on his face, like,
right.
Wait a minute, what? What do you mean? Because I'm bringing my flock here and you what? But it can happen to anyone, and it happens to anyone all the time. See, my question is, beyond, well, first of all, let us get to October 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. What should people be doing? Robert Williams, you said Ronald Reagan planted the seed and sneaky George Herbert Walker Bush carried it through. They took back every gain we made in the 20th century. Yes and no. I mean, there were things that happened under the Clinton administration, and I liked Bill Clinton tremendously, that took us back. There were some protections that we needed the Obama administration to make that they should have enacted. They did not. So you have to be vigilant. I don't care who's in the office, y'all. Remember, politics is not a date, it's a destination. Don't fall in love. Fall in line with that which is right and push for it. Don't stop falling in love with these politicians. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. That is not what they are there for. Fall in love with your husband, your wife, your partner, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. Fall there. And I hope you rise in love. But that's another story, another conversation. I really don't want you falling up your head. I'd like you to rise. But there's something else going on here. And we're watching the systematic purging of our votes. And it's happening. It's happening right before our very eyes, and we're not seeing it. And yes, and I said it earlier this morning today when we were on Keep Hope Alive. Yeah, I hold the Democrats responsible for this partly, and I'm going to tell you why. We didn't get our executive order on voting rights. That is something that the Democrats need right now. And that's something that America needs right now,
That's
period.
right.
With all of the mistrust and distrust of the system, Representative Reynolds, you need to have, and talk about a pathway to citizenship, you need a pathway to the vote, and you need a protected right to vote. And you need to have an open process. Honestly, in Georgia, I don't mind them hand counting the votes. I don't. If that is going to make people, and you have an objection, you have impartial observers watching you count these votes, I'm with it. Whatever we need to do, and if you're going to give all these other countries all these billions of dollars, put $1 billion in this election cycle, pay some people to count these votes, because we don't need 2020 all over again. We don't need 1960 because they stole that election too, and 2000. We'll keep on going. It's happened so much, and there's so much that has happened. Just there's so much that has happened. People don't trust the system anymore. They don't trust the Supreme Court. They don't trust Congress. They don't trust the presidency. That is dangerous, Representative Reynolds.
That's right.
It's just dangerous. So I'm just saying, wait a minute. We need to have a process that's open and fair and transparent, where everybody gets their shot, a fair shot. And so, what do we do? I go to vote.org. And should everybody do that right now?
Absolutely. Everyone. No one should be assuming that they're on the voter rolls until they verify. I did it myself, even though I voted in every election, because again, when you have people that that are regular voters that haven't moved and they were purged, you know that it could be you. So yes, every single person that believes that they're registered, just verify it. It's a minute. I mean, come on. It's not rocket science. You go to vote.org, enter your name, your address, boom, you're done.
Well, let me ask you this. Well, hold on, because a lot of people don't have access to the internet. Now, obviously, not the people here, but you have to pay for that.
That's true.
I mean, so I mean, can you go to the library?
I was going to say that we have county libraries. I mean, I don't know, the jurisdictions could be different, but we have county libraries that provide access for free. You have people with a lot of cell phones have it, but we're resourceful people. There's a will, there's a way, and I encourage everyone to find the will to verify your vote. Borrow a person's computer, get it on someone's hotspot, whatever you need to do, do it. And all it's going to do is take you no more than 2 minutes. And that's if you're really going slow. But it took me about a minute, Santita, to verify my status. And I've encouraged others to do the same thing. And that's 1 minute worth your security, because now I know that there is no impediment. God's will, he says the same, and I'm able to vote. I'm voting on the first day of early voting. By the way, so my election day is October 21st, because that's the first day of early voting, because I want to get it out the way and then spend my time encouraging others to go vote. I'll tell you a quick story. One year I was just out of college, just out of law school. I waited to election day, and I'll never forget. This was before we had countywide voting places, so I had to go to my precinct. Well, I got stuck in traffic. There was a bad accident, and I got to the polling location at 7:01. The polls closed at 7. Oh. I couldn't vote. Ever since that day, I kicked myself. I beat myself up, and I've always took the early voting, because you never know what happens on election day. It could be an accident. It could be a sickness, an illness. It could be, death in the family where you have to travel to a funeral, whatever the reason. But I learned a valuable lesson that I needed to vote early. So, but whatever you do, check your status, make a plan to vote, whether it's early or on election day or through mail, however you vote. This election is so critical to our democracy. I cannot understate it. And Santita, I'm glad you talked about it. Down ballot is the most important.
That
You
was going to be
know,
my question for you. What about down
I
ballot
like
voting?
some in some jurisdictions within my community, depending on where they are, there's city council races on the ballot, right? There are races for sheriff on the ballot, for constable, for justice of the peace, for judges, for U.S. Congress, for state representative, for state senator, for school board. Those are all very important elections for Supreme Court justice and appellate
Wait a minute,
justice
in your state.
in your state,
Right.
right?
Because wait a
So
minute, sometimes the case you think should go to the Supreme Court, it stops in your state, and that's
that's
because the
correct.
Supreme
Your
Court
state
doesn't have to
Supreme
hear
Court.
everything. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, and so that's why it's so important. We often focus on the US Supreme Court, but every state has a state
Mhm.
Supreme Court where they usually that's it, right? The US Supreme Court for most people, they don't hear most cases they reject. They hear very few cases. But your state Supreme Court, that's usually the place where it's it because the Supreme Court, they have the discretion to hear these cases on appeal. So the point I'm making is this, Santita, those are elections that matter most in your day-to-day lives. So yes, it is so important and critical that you're registered and that you vote and that you take the duty to go down ballot. Don't just stop because the president is usually the first thing on the ballot, and then you have to go down to get to those lower elections, all the way down to the bottom where it's closest to the people. I would tell people the closest to the people is at the bottom of the ballot. That the last races are the ones that is most closest to you locally.
Mhm.
The national races, because it goes president, U.S. Senate, Congress, things like that at the top, and it goes all the way down. Be disciplined and go all the way down. Every vote counts.
Every vote counts, and please vote.org. Please go to vote.org now and find out if you're still on the voter rolls. You might have registered before,
That's right.
but
These
even
these
if
these purges are real. It's real out there in them streets.
out there in the streets,
I'm telling you, and they are doing everything by hook or crook,
yeah,
and you can put nothing past them. And we can debate the issue later about how fair it is, but that don't change nothing right now. It's like, you're in a game and you sitting there arguing with the ref and you get ejected instead of just, okay, yeah, it was wrong, but I got to stay focused and win this game and play ball. I can't allow the ref to eject me. Hey, these are the rules of engagement. We don't like the rules. We'll fight about getting the rules changed. But for right now, I got to go and get re-registered and I got to vote. Then I can hold my elected officials accountable who did the voter disenfranchisement. If you're not registered, you could complain, but you can't vote them out of office. You're a part of the problem, not a part of the solution.
how
Be a
about
part of the
that?
solution. Be registered and then vote. Vote your values. Do your research. Know who's responsible for these voter purges. In Texas, is Governor Abbott. He is solely responsible because he's the one that gives the discretion and the okay to the Secretary of State to do this nonsense. Our Attorney General, he's the one that's going after the Crystal Masons of the world. So that is why it's so important that you vote and you vote people out that don't care about our communities. If you care about a woman's right to choose, if you care about voting rights, criminal justice reform, climate action, raising the minimum wage, access to health care, and everything in between, then this election is on those issues are on the ballot.
Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. We've been talking about voting, everybody. It is a big, big deal. Go to vote.org, find out if you are still on the rolls. Also, if you're not on the rolls, if you have been deregistered, let's put it that way, you can re-register right there.
That's right.
And you can also find out what the cutoff date for your state is. That begins this week, everybody. That's why we're really, really pushing this week. You're gonna hear this a whole lot this week because I've gotten 3 messages from you over the past since this morning. saying that because you've been hearing us talk about vote.org, you went and checked and you found out that you were not on the rolls. Robert, what, you were not on the rolls because you didn't have drive, you had street? Oh man. I mean, they're really, 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 really pushing the envelope. Coming up, we've got Greg Palast, Vigilantes Inc. You can look at the movie for free. You can look at it for free. SaveYourVote.org, GregPalast.com. We're going to talk with him about this tremendous research that he has done on voter purges, on voter suppression, and why it's important. It is so important, y'all. It's so important. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes.